Little bird singing, little bird singing. Sitting on the bench, sitting on the bench.
And the first thing I'll say about Tomatis is that it was really fun for my daughter. I mean, she loved coming here and she would talk about it. And that's half the battle with a lot of these young children. And it was never made to be a burden or something layered on to a busy schedule or anything like that. It was always fun for her and she enjoyed it.
So when we started Tomatis, we all saw immediate changes. Tomatis was life-changing. I don't even know any other way to say it.
Here at Total Approach, we combine Tomatis with an intensive occupational therapy program. But the Tomatis portion of the program is the sound therapy program that stimulates the central nervous system, particularly the sensory system, in helping the system perceive sensory information in a more organized manner so that children can be calmer, more attentive, know where their body is in space, and has a domino effect into all areas. But it's really building, Tomatis is really building the foundation, reorganizing that first year of life, so to speak.
Talking about Tomatis sound therapy, Dr. Tomatis did some very, very groundbreaking work in the 1950s and 1960s. He was an ENT, ear, nose and throat specialist, and he developed 3 different laws. The one being that the voice can only contain what the ear can hear, and then that you can durably change the voice, and that you can also do it permanently, that you can change it in a permanent direction. And these laws actually started the basis of all of sound therapy today. When we investigated different sound therapies, we wanted to go down to the source about what was the most original and most comprehensive program. And we ended up being trained in the Dr. Tomatis program itself and not one of his derivatives.
So oftentimes, children who have difficulty with movement or need to move more in order to attend, by working through an auditory-based program such as Tomatis, they're able to regulate or to modulate their system to become calmer in their movements. They don't need to move as much to pay attention.
The Tomatis program is worked out with using Mozart music, Gregorian chants, and then we use a little bit of Strauss waltz as well. And then the children are listening to it on headphones that's got ear conduction as well as a bone conductor in the middle of the top of the head. And that bone conduction piece is extremely important, especially for the movement piece, as that piece is about, bone conduction travels about 20 times faster than your air conduction. So when we're working on the body piece, which is important for us as occupational therapists, the bone conduction is really where we're getting a lot of the input and also a lot of the quicker input that we're seeing in the changes of the children, which is why we can talk about seeing changes within the first 4 or 5 days of the program.
He was not here more than a few days when he really started showing such differences in his ability to be able to process what it was that he was hearing. But I think the 3rd or 4th day we were in Tomatis, he turned up the radio in the car. He was listening to the music and he turned up the radio and he said, "Mom, you know what? There's so much more in this song than I recognized before, than I heard before." And the other thing we noticed after the first week is he never was very expressive about his feelings. He really kept everything inside. And then after a week or so of Tomatis, there wasn't a feeling he had that he didn't need to express. And he started keeping a diary. And this was, for a kid who didn't like to write, didn't really like to do schoolwork, we were amazed. And he kept writing all of his thoughts and his feelings down in this diary, and really there was kind of like this dam burst of self-expression.
The essence is not really for us to do sound therapy work as occupational therapists, but mostly to do the sensory processing work with the addition of the sound, which is why when we're doing it at the center, we are working with occupational therapy programming as well as the sound at the same time. So the child would be standing on a balance board, doing a visual exercise while they're listening on the headphones and using all of their systems together at the same time, giving them an experience of integrating the different input media that's given to them.
Like I can just think of one child that I had who he was almost just seemed like he was trapped in his own world. And after about 3 or 4 days in Tomatis, it was just like all of a sudden he was there. He was, giving eye contact to me. It just seemed like he was there. He was there with us. So, every day I see one of those aha moments.
The Tomatis is usually what we call the center-based program. But then there is a home-based portion, and that's called Solisten. And Solisten is a derivative of the Tomatis program, with most of the Tomatis effect available in the program. So quite a nice, high-quality product on its own. There's some features that it doesn't have, like the vocal work, but for the most part it has much of what the Tomatis center-based program provides. In part of the Tomatis work, we also have what we call mother's voice work. So we do a recording of the mother's voice, reading a book called The Little Prince, which is a book that everybody reads across the world. And the mother's voice is recorded and played back to her child at about 8,000 hertz, which is said to be the hertz that a baby listens to the mom while the baby's in the womb. Really good for attachment pieces, really good for the emotional pieces of bonding with the child.
It was an amazing process. It was truly life transforming. It was not easy, and I think if I had done this as a child, it would have been much, much easier.
Oh, it was like hitting the lottery for Ben. It was just an amazing transformation. He went from stammering and sing-song to putting sentences together, using words that I didn't even know he could comprehend at his age.
Third loop that he did was amazing for us as parents because we have such a wonderful neighborhood, and Joey has 3 other siblings, and the kids are always outside. And Joey's fine motor skills and his gross motor skills were so delayed, and he really just couldn't do much. And I remember the second to the last day coming out of his third loop of Tomatis that he went into the garage, got on his tricycle, and rode it out and just rode away with everybody else on their bikes. And we were just so surprised because he never knew how to pedal before that. And I think, from that point on, he just kept going and never looked back.